All right, everyone. So in this lab, we are creating a landscape with food, cookies, so different types of cookies and candies and syrups, and I have some Jello here in order to create features of erosion and deposition, whether it be ice, water, etc. We're going to create those type of features. I'm going to simulate types of erosion and things like that with my food. And I even grabbed some cotton balls to make some clouds. We can talk about the water cycle. We'll talk about all of it. And you can follow along. You can be creative. I hope that you'll take a picture at the end to upload to the classroom. So first we need to create our landscape. So we need some sort of like dirt, mountain type stuff going on, and we need water. I'm going to create an ocean, maybe some lakes. So what I'm going to do is, for most of the dirt, I got these, cheaper Publix chocolate chip cookies, and I'm just going to throw a few of these in the bag. You can probably break them up with your hands, but I'm going to go ahead and throw a bunch of these in the bag and hit it with this spatula or this spoon, large spoon. I'll probably do about, 12 cookies, maybe a little bit more. That'll get us started. And if I'm going too fast for you, you can pause the video. You can also create your own things. You don't have to create exactly what I'm making. You don't have to create every feature that I'm going to make. Okay, so hold your ears. Shake it around a little bit. That worked out pretty well. Just need to break up some more of these bigger chunks. Some of the finer chunks can be like dirt. Some of the larger chunks can be sort of like rocks. Now I'm just going to dump it in here. Okay, so this would be the land of our landscape that we're creating here. Okay, so now I'm going to create an ocean with some Jello. I made this Jello. You could use a smaller amount if you have the little cups, or you could use jelly. You could even use whipped cream here. You know what? Actually, I might throw some whipped cream on here to make it look like it's waves. But let me go ahead and grab a spoon and start scooping some of this Jello in here. Now, try not to touch it. Wash your hands before. Try not to touch your food too much, or at least, we are going to be touching some, but wash your hands because you and your family can eat this later. My kids happen to not be here today, and I don't know if they're going to be here later, actually. And I don't eat this kind of food because I'm on a no sugar diet. However, I do have some sugar-free Jello I might dive into later because this is making my mouth water. All right, again, if I go too fast, go ahead and pause the video. Or if you think of some other idea and you want to jump on that idea, pause the video. I'm just kind of dumping this in as fast as I can so the video isn't too long. I could probably be here an hour. Ooh, this is actually looking very pretty as an ocean. Oh my, how I wish I could take a bite of this. It's looking so delish. Okay, I think that's looking pretty good. Now I'm going to get a little bit of whipped cream. Be right back. And I'm not going to do too much because I might add some other features here, but maybe just a little bit of foam to show maybe a wave here, how the waves foam up. Let's see, I think I'll do a little bit right here. And then I'll add a little more Jello to make it look like it's a big wave that's breaking on the shore. Or about to break on the shore. Does that look like a wave? I know it's hard to tell on the video. I think it's gonna have to do for now. There we go. I think so a little bit. Okay. So we have the main landscape. We have land, we have water, and now I'm gonna start just sort of displaying features, okay? So the first thing I'm going to display would be condensation. So especially over water, we have a lot of evaporation. That's when the water turns into water vapor. And as the water vapor rises into the colder atmosphere, it starts condensing into clouds. So actually, what's the best way to do this? I think I'll stick this pointy end into the cloud and then just kind of stick it here. Is that gonna work? There we go. See, it's kind of sticking up. This part is not necessary at all. I just thought of this right before and I was like, ooh, I'll grab some cotton. And you know what? It's literally giving me goosebumps. You know how sometimes when you rub cotton together, ooh, I don't know if you guys know, you can't see them, but I have goosebumps right now. So this is the only other one I'm going to do. I'm not going to do the third one because it is giving me those creepy feels. Sometimes I'm like that and sometimes I'm not. All right, so I have two clouds in the sky over the ocean, okay? And obviously, when the cloud gets heavy enough, oops, no, my cloud's coming apart, hold on. We have precipitation, right? Whether that's snow, rain, hail, etc. What can I do with precipitation? So I'm just doing a little simulation here with my confectioner's powdered sugar. You know, like I said, I am sugar-free, but I found all of this stuff that I think I've had for like a decade in the back of my cabinet. So I'm going to just go ahead and show a little bit of rain, I guess. This would be rain coming from the cloud. Looks like snow, though. We can call it snow. Okay, so that is the water cycle. We have evaporation, condensation, precipitation. Now, when this occurs over land, when the precipitation occurs over land, if it rains, we have runoff. So what I want to do is do a little display of runoff. There's a little bug here that wants to eat my eat my food. So I'm going to sort of make a little bit of a hill up here. And I don't know, I might have to break open the Oreos for this. I can't decide. Let's see, should I break up the Oreos? Not yet. All right, so I'm going to display what would be precipitation turning into runoff. Let's make this a little bit more of a slant here. I'm going to use corn syrup as the water, as the rain. So this would be rain and then like a stream going to the ocean or runoff. And runoff is slowed down when you have maybe vegetation or rocks in the way. Okay, so that would be an example of why they plant plants on sand dunes, to prevent too much runoff and for those dunes breaking up and flowing, you know, the sand being deposited elsewhere, being eroded and deposited elsewhere. So I'll go ahead and put some candies here. Maybe we can prevent the runoff from getting all the way to the ocean. So like I said, planting some plants can prevent runoff from getting too crazy. Also putting rocks and different textures on the ground, even grass can help too. So I'm going to put this candy here. And this can kind of catch some of the runoff, prevent it from getting too crazy. I also have these sprinkles. Some of you in my class may recognize these. I used these for the blood lab last quarter. I'm going to put some of these here. Okay, so now we're going to do our runoff and see if these things help to prevent. I think I'll tilt it a little bit as I go. So let's say it rained a lot and runoff is starting. Okay. And these candies should theoretically slow it down, keep it from going all the way to the ocean. Well, some of it is getting there. But we're just going to say that it did prevent it. Oh, I just realized you guys probably can't see that too much. I'm going to go ahead and say it did slow it down. Now, how can it do that? That would be infiltration. So the water, by these rocks slowing the water down as it's going this way, the water has more time to infiltrate, go into the ground. So infiltrate into the ground before it just runs off, as they say. The next thing we could talk about now is sublimation. So that is when ice turns directly to water vapor. If you've ever seen dry ice, that's sublimation. You see a chunk of ice and you just see steam coming off of it or vapor. That's just the ice going right to water vapor before turning to liquid. And this can occur with snow. So I'm going to go ahead and create a little bit of a mountaintop here. We'll have a glacier. I don't know that I can simulate sublimation, but we can talk about it. All right, so glaciers, I'm going to use small marshmallows. These are pretty old. I've used these for a lot of labs, and look, they're kind of sticking together, but you get the point. So we're going to have some glaciers. Now, what do we call glaciers coming down off of mountains? We would call them alpine glaciers, as opposed to a continental glacier, which it's sitting on a continent and it sort of flows out, but alpine glaciers tend to flow slowly down, which means they slowly move down the mountain. Alpine glaciers, they can be moving in different directions. There can be one long glacier moving, usually that is the case. And it can even move all the way to the ocean or another body of water. Okay, so we have some glaciers here. Now sublimation would be, it gets real cold and the ice just turns right to water vapor. Okay, sublimation. I don't know that I can display that. Maybe I could show some sugar going up, I don't know. So next, okay, so we talked about the alpine glaciers. I have my little note here. Let's talk about glacier erosion. What happens as glaciers move down the mountain or flow across the land? It's similar to water in that they can pick things up, so that's erosion, and then they can carry it and deposit it, or carry it and it sticks to the glacier. So the glacier can get really dirty and muddy, not muddy, but dirty underneath. So one example of this would be plucking. And I don't know, I think I'm going to pull out an Oreo for this example because we need sort of a little bit of a finer cookie. So I'm going to go ahead and break up, let's see, 2 Oreos. I should have pulled the white. I should have just pulled one piece off. I didn't think about that, but I think this will work. I should have pulled one piece off and just broken that up instead of all this white stuff, but okay, so we're just going to put some extra dirt here around here in the path of the glacier moving to the water. Some stuff for the glacier to pick up on the way. All right, now I just made my hands really sticky and yucky. Let me grab a paper towel. All right, so plucking would be as the glacier is moving down, it is literally plucking up debris as it goes. Now, these aren't too sticky. Actually, I have an idea. I'm going to put a little bit of corn syrup on it to make it sticky. My clouds are falling a little bit. Okay, this would be plucking. So I've got a sticky glacier. And as it's moving down the mountain or just across the land, creating a valley, it may pick up a little bit of dirt, and I'm just kind of going like this. See that? So underneath, there's a little bit of dirt stuck to the glacier. Now, since there's so much pressure under there with the weight of the glacier, it's going to, get embedded into that glacier pretty good, and it's going to be carried across the land. Okay, so that's called plucking. Abrasion is what it's doing to the mountain as it's moving. So normally the weight of the glacier is just sort of creating this U-shaped valley, which I'm not sure I can create a U-shaped valley here, maybe with my finger. So the valley pretty much takes the shape of the glacier, which is like a U on the bottom. And that's abrasion. So it's abrading the valley, this valley as it goes. Now, once the glacier moves all the way to, let's say, the ocean, let's say we have this long glacier. I'll put a few of these together. This is one long glacier and it moves to the ocean. Well, when it gets to the ocean, this last little chunk, there's no land supporting it anymore, so it breaks off. This is called glacial calving. And what happens is, now it's an iceberg, okay? Now what happens if the iceberg rolls? Maybe I should move this down a little bit. So now we have an iceberg floating around in the ocean. What happens if the iceberg rolls, which sometimes it does? Oh, look. It's brown on the top. Now it usually has more pieces stuck to it or in it than this, right? And it's, you know, now you have this dirty iceberg and you're like, why is it brown? Why is it black like that? I always thought icebergs were white. Well, that's because when it was part of the glacier, it plucked up debris and there's debris all stuck to the bottom of it. And sometimes they get a little top heavy and they roll and they just stay upside down like this. And so they'll look brown, you know, sometimes there's darker, all different colors, debris on it. Okay, so that is a dirty upside down iceberg because that's the debris it picked up when it was part of the glacier moving across the land. There we go. And then of course, you know, some will break off and just look like regular icebergs until they roll. Okay, what else can we, so we talked about the U-shaped valley, which is caused by abrasion. A kettle lake. A kettle lake. Basically, if part of the ice stays behind and then it melts, so I'm going to go ahead and say, let's say this part of the glacier stayed behind, it sort of broke off from the other part of the glacier, and it melts over time. So what happens is the glacier sort of made this little hole, and then when it melted, let's just pretend like it's melting. I'm taking it away, but let's just pretend like it melted. Now it's just, we're left with this little lake, this cute little lake. And of course, some of them are bigger than others. That's called a kettle lake. I guess because it's like round and it's kind of shaped like a kettle, a tea kettle. Okay, let's see. Now water erosion. I think we need some more Oreos for this. Let me break up a couple more Oreos and I'm gonna pull this apart this time. Save that for my son. These are actually gluten-free Oreos, isn't that funny? I think I can still use some of that. I just wanted a little more, like some finer dirt. So water can create different types of features with erosion and deposition. And we already talked about runoff. And I'm going to sort of make another little sort of hill or mountain here with some dirt. Okay, now some of this I may not be able to display. Water takes a while. I mean, all of these features do take a while to create, but I'm going to show you just a few features that can occur. Should I use Hershey's syrup? No, I'll stick with the corn syrup for now. So the first thing would be a V-shaped valley. So if water creates a stream or a river, think of the Colorado River going through, the Grand Canyon. Instead of a U-shaped valley in the shape of, say, the glacier, it's going to create a V-shaped valley. So I'm just going to have a little bit of water running here. We're probably not really going to see a V-shaped valley, but you get the point. Okay, and then it runs into a larger body of water. Just pretend like that's a V-shaped valley. There we go. The next thing we can talk about is a stream or a river that will start to meander, which means it goes back and forth, and we call that a meander. And what happens is, and this is going to be hard for me to display, but as the river or stream goes back and forth, it starts getting wider and wider. So it may be going back and forth a little bit, and then over time, these back and forths just get wider and wider, because as they go around the bend, they start eroding the stream bank or the river bank in that corner as it goes around. So think of yourself going down like a water slide, you kind of go flying around. That water going around starts eroding, and then it picks up some of the sediment, and then it will erode over here. So it'll just keep getting wider and wider because of the erosion on the bend. And I'm just going to do a little meander, little back and forth river here. And it gets wider and wider over time. And this can create a little bit of a floodplain as these meanders get wider and wider. Some of the water may kind of spread out and create a floodplain, which, you know, the Everglades is an example of a floodplain. So what else? Okay, an alluvial fan. So this I've even seen occur at the beach, just with water running. You can kind of see sometimes as it runs back, it'll sort of fan out and it'll make the sand fan out. So that would be, actually, I'll just do it with my finger or with this toothpick. That would be that as the river is going to the larger body of water, the ocean, the river starts to fan out at the end. So it picks up sediment and then it drops it here in like this fan shape. So you almost have these, I don't know, there's just this fan shape that develops. And then what's really cool is if this river or body of water dries up, later you're just left with this fan shape in the land. And that looks really pretty. And that is from deposition in that area. And then wave deposition. So if you've been to the beach before, you may have seen a sandbar, you may have seen a spit, you may have seen, well, you've probably seen sand dunes, right? So we already talked about sand dunes, and that is from wave erosion and deposition. Sometimes the water will just push the sand up, and then you have a sand dune. A spit would be, let me take some of my Oreos. From sand deposition, you know, maybe there's a current going this way in the ocean and it's bringing with it sand. So it might create sort of a little like a peninsula, but it's just, they vary in size, but they're normally just small. A lot of times they're just temporary. This can happen like, I don't know, I'm thinking of like where I live, we have these little sandbars and spits that develop when it's low tide. And so that's from movement of sand to a certain area. And we have just a little bit of a peninsula here. I'm trying, guys. It's getting everywhere. All right, so we have this little peninsula that's coming off of the beach. That's a spit. And then a sandbar would be like a little land feature here, like a mini island. And if the sandbar gets big enough and maybe some vegetation starts growing, we would call that a barrier island, okay? So I'm gonna create a little barrier island here, or a sandbar. And that's created from water, from sand deposition, from the waves having a certain current, moving the sand all to one spot. And you can definitely see sandbars more when the tide is low. And then when the tide goes up, sometimes the sandbar goes away. Again, if it continues to develop and really create vegetation and stuff, then you may have a barrier island there. I think if I forgot anything, I'm sure we could go on and create more features, but so what we talked about here is erosion and deposition. Okay, erosion, remember, is when water or ice or wind picks up sediment and moves it. Deposition is when it drops it somewhere. Weathering is like the wearing away of rock. So when the glaciers come by here, oops, when the glacier comes by and erodes or weathers the land, we call that abrasion. It's like abrading the surface and creating unique features. The Kettle Lake we had here. Okay, I think that's it, we're done. So go ahead and take a picture. It doesn't have to be beautiful. You can label it if you want to. I'm not requiring you to. I think I'll be able to get the point of what you've done. And you can see mine, you know, toward the end, since I was moving stuff all around. It sort of looks like a big mess. It probably looks better in a picture. And maybe I'll take a picture and label this later. My whipped cream started to sort of melt here. Boy, this looks like something I would love to just grab a spoon and dive into. Okay, everyone, I can't wait to see your picture and I will see you later. Bye-bye.